Hey everyone, and welcome back to Practically Zero Waste, a podcast for making zero waste living as practical as possible. And welcome to episode 25, woohoo! As you may have heard, the podcast now has an email address, so if you want to ask a question or just say hello, that's practicallyzerowaste@gmail.com. I want to say thank you to everyone who's left a rating or review. That means a lot and helps spread the word about this podcast. If you'd like to boost my ego and my ratings, remember to rate and review this episode on Apple Podcasts and subscribe for lots more eco-friendly episodes. One more thing, if you're interested in supporting this delightfully ad-free podcast, you can go to anchor.fm/practicallyzerowaste and hit the support button. Okay, I think that's all. On today's episode, I talked to Jill Bishop, Community Food Cultivator for the Nourish Project, about community gardens, urban agriculture, and how to build relationship with the earth as well as the people around us. Let's go. So what is Nourish and what kind of programs are offered?
So Nourish, our tagline is sort of belonging through food. So we have what we like to say many ingredients in that recipe. One of them, quite understandably, is growing, which is the work that I do, so I can obviously talk to you about that more extensively, but it's a lot to do with supporting community gardens, helping people start their own community gardens, get involved in existing ones, or sort of continue to allow gardens to thrive and grow over time.
Cool.
And we do a lot of workshops and education around growing food and people that have backyards, farms, boulevards, whatever it is, not just community gardens.
Anything, right? Like just even a garden box or a balcony?
Exactly. Yep, exactly. Fire escape, wherever it is that people want to grow, we try to support them in that.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's a pretty great job, I'm not going to lie. And then the other elements are cooking. So we definitely help people, come together and cook together and learn different food literacy skills and also sort of build community as they come together.
Wow.
So we have cooking classes, and then we have things called market meals. So people go to the farmer's market and shop together and then go and cook a meal together.
Oh.
Go into schools and work with families, sort of lots of different elements to that as well. And then I do also do some canning and classes sort of under that umbrella as well.
What? That's awesome. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, super fun. And then eating is sort of another component of ours, and we do community meals. So just the idea of getting people together to eat and to chat and maybe meet some people in their community they don't already know, or just bring sort of diverse groups of people together. And then the fourth element is advocacy. So that sort of runs throughout all of our programs, in which we sort of advocate for people to have greater access to fresh food, to local food, to the knowledge and skills that they need to sort of increase their personal and community food security.
Wow, what a well-rounded set of programs that you offer. That's wonderful.
Yeah, it's really great. So obviously I have many other staff members that I work with that do the other portions of those work. I certainly don't do all of that on my own.
Totally, yeah. What is your title?
My title is Community Food Cultivator.
Cultivator, cool. I like that.
Yeah. It used to be coordinator, and I just felt like it should be a little more action-oriented.
Oh, nice. So grow, cook, eat, advocate. Goes over
we try
and
to
over
integrate
again.
all of those elements into each program, but certainly advocacy runs throughout them all.
I love that. Do you have a program space that you offer your cooking classes in, or where do you guys kind of meet for all this?
So we're sort of a collaborative between multiple organizations and groups throughout town, and some of our main partners are Public Health and Green Up. So at Public Health, there is a kitchen called Myrtle's Kitchen that we share with the Public Health staff.
Lovely.
So we do quite a few of our community meals, cooking and planning classes there, but we do also have an emphasis on working in the county and throughout the community. So we definitely go to churches and community centers and healthcare centers to do some of that work as well.
Yeah, anywhere that has a suitable space for you guys, because you just get to set up.
Yeah, I mean, people can often feel more comfortable if we go to them. We do have a hub in Curve Lake and in Lakefield as well, and so we don't expect everyone to travel into Peterborough necessarily for our programming.
How many community gardens are managed by Nourish?
So right now there are 47 throughout the city and county.
What? That's way more.
I I say it's the highest per capita in the country, although I have not necessarily updated that in a couple of years, but I believe it's still quite up there, if not the highest still, for sure.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing for sure. So
Why?
that might fluctuate a little bit this season. There's a couple that may have to close for some construction and a couple new ones we're working on starting. So we'll say about 45 just to be safe.
Wow. Wow. That is... How on earth do we have so many in this county?
It's pretty amazing. Like when we started the program, we had 8. So we certainly have seen a massive growth in interest and engagement and support from property owners. And yeah, it's been a very vibrant program for sure.
Incredible. So who donates property? Is that stuff that the city has bought?
It's on sort of all different levels. So there are quite a few on municipal property.
Yeah.
We do have a City of Peterborough community garden policy that has sort of helped push that forward. And then we do have schools that we work with a lot and churches as well. So those are big ones. We do have a few on municipal and one on federal government property. And then there's a few on sort of like front lawns of organizations, community housing, and some private businesses as well, just 1 or 2.
That's great. There's so many people
quite a
involved.
diversity.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can't believe you have 47 or
I know.
45 active.
It's pretty amazing. Often when I tell people that, they do react similarly to you.
That's great, because I can name 2.
Yeah, and I mean, some of them are kind of hidden, and some of them may only know, the ones that you walk by or that are in your neighborhood where you work or live or play. So you may not be exposed to the others if you're not sort of in the area.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, wow. So what's the importance of a community garden, the aspect of growing? That's one of the 4 tenets that you take care of with Nourish.
So that we sort of say there's sort of 3 main benefits, although of course there's many. A big one would be food security. So gardens are designed to be what I would refer to as frontline food security, in which people are growing food for themselves in these spaces. Whether they're food insecure or just want access to more fresh food, it certainly helps people supplement their budgets or their diet just by growing it themselves.
Wonderful.
And then we do have some people that will grow to donate to food banks and other community meals as well. So
Awesome.
That
Cool.
element too, although the majority, I would say, is more kind of direct people growing for themselves.
Yeah.
So that's a really important one, obviously. And then we also have sort of like the environmental kind of beautification benefits. So like a lot of the spaces are underutilized, had maybe just been a dirt path through a park and no one really stopped in the park, or just a space no one was using, or maybe like quite derelict and needing some improvement. And so obviously by creating gardens, we're creating habitat and greening and just sort of beautifying that area as well.
Wonderful. Oh my gosh.
And then I'd say the last element is kind of the biggest, or maybe, I don't think most important, but it's definitely the biggest impact, is the idea of building community. So bringing people together that may not know each other in the neighborhoods, or meeting like-minded individuals. And then the advocacy component of that, like giving people an understanding that this is like common land that does belong to them, and they do have the capacity to organize around it to make it something that they feel benefits their community, and that is virtually designed by them. I mean, we certainly support them with structures and confines that may be required by the landowners, but in the end, it's run, governed, and organized by the people in the community themselves. So that tends to have a very positive ripple effect throughout the community.
Oh, that's delightful. I just see so much mental health benefit from all kinds of things like that as well.
And people often identify physical health, mental health, community health, like sort of side effects or ripple benefits that they never expected. Like lower crime, just neighbors talking to each other more, just simple things a lot
Learning
of the time.
skills too, and having something to take care of. I've talked about this on the podcast a lot lately, just because spring is in the air and that's all I can think about. But if you have your hands in the dirt and you have this responsibility to take care of something, then there's just so many benefits from that mentally.
Absolutely. And I mean, we often say, everybody has something to bring. Like maybe someone loves to plan parties. Maybe someone's a great communicator. Maybe someone's a master gardener. Like there's so many opportunities to share strengths that people have that they may not even identify right away. But once they get into the garden, they start to see, I do have something to contribute. Sometimes we have people who've gardened for many years. Sometimes we have people who've never put a seed in the ground. And
Oh my gosh,
lots of opportunity to share that.
How do you sign up to join a community garden?
So you can call or email me. If you know like a specific garden in your neighborhood and you already know the coordinator, you can chat with them. But generally we try to maintain an overall waiting list here just so we have an idea of exactly how many people are getting plots. And as you say, a lot of people may not know where they are. So you could just call me and say,
Right.
I want a community garden. I know nothing about it. And I will generally ask you like if there's a specific neighborhood that's most convenient for you or if you have a garden in mind. And then we kind of try to match people up with appropriate available plots by figuring that out.
Exactly, yeah, because if it's something that is either close to your house or close to your work or close to your child's daycare or anything like that might help just make it more appealing for you and more likely that you'll help maintain it. What's the...
We definitely see if it's close to something that's convenient to you, you're more likely to go, you're more likely to be engaged.
Yes.
And if it's right in your neighborhood and it's in walking distance, it strengthens that sort of community benefit as well. And certainly people, we have people that drive to their gardens and they definitely have similar benefits. It doesn't remove it, but the closer you can be, it does seem to have greater success for sure.
I think so too, and I'm sure people who even have a garden in their backyard, like me, will find it hard to always make sure you go out. So if it's a place that you have to go to, like that takes just one extra step out of your own personal laziness to...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, I mean, as you've said, like it's spring, everyone's super gung-ho about gardening, and then sometimes the reality of life kicks in throughout the season, and you get busy, and you have to haul water, and, like it's easier for you to get there, and you're feeling like it's just a benefit to your day as opposed to like a chore that you've added to.
Yeah. So what are the expectations for being a member of the garden?
So each garden has a sort of basic rules and regulations kind of gardener's agreement that they're asked to sign. Generally, we work as a group to define those rules. So there are certainly things that need to be in there based on the landowner, particularly if it's with the city or another level of government. But they're pretty basic. So some of the things would be, I will plant my plot by a certain date and clean up by a certain date. So that just means, if you're not going to actually use your plot, then we need to know so we can give it to somebody else. We usually ask people to clean up their plot by November at first. If you still have kale or successful things, you don't have to pull them out, but we don't want all of a sudden winter to hit and people haven't taken all their trellising or water bottles or things like that. So there's kind of a season that we ask people to try to stick to. And then, if you're going to abandon your plot for any reason, we ask you to let the coordinator know so that it doesn't become unkempt. And so again, we could give it to someone else if there's interest in that.
Totally.
We ask, people to play nice with one another, get along with one another.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's rules like don't grow corn or invasive species that may spread because corn can attract raccoons and they can be hard to get out of the garden once they're there.
Oh, I hadn't thought of something like that. So what else is on the list for...
high and sort of eat a lot of the nutrients in the garden, and really you need a pretty big plot to grow corn successfully. So generally there are some communal elements of the garden like water systems, compost, shared perennial gardens or whatever. So we ask people to, engage in the wider community of the garden, not just maintain their plot and that's it.
Yeah.
There's a hold harmless, like I won't sue the landowner or Jill or anyone else involved in the garden.
All important things to sign off on.
All important things, for sure.
You're like, can't do it. You sign the paper.
Some are like, I will use uniform trellising so that everything looks nice in the garden.
Oh, that's nice.
There's just kind of super basic rules. Like, I will not pick from someone else's plot unless I've asked to. And just
right.
Like that.
Right, totally.
And then generally there's about a $5 to $20 fee depending on the garden.
Okay.
And that money is just for the garden. So it would be used to buy broken tools or a water tank or throw a barbecue, whatever it is that the gardeners choose to do with that.
Okay. What kind of expenses would a community garden have for themselves?
Rain barrels, not all of the gardens, or very few of them, have sort of running water that can be used freely. So quite a few of them will have a water tank that even if there is water available, they'll fill up the tank for people to water from as opposed to having a hose left running or something.
Totally, yeah.
Lines. Often there's a shed or some sort of storage, and that would be tools. So both of those things are kind of a basic expense.
That's nice that members can just use the tools there and the water there and everything. That they don't have to haul it.
For a lot of people that would be walking. It's much easier than trying to bring tools back and forth. And maybe people don't have tools. season. So that's a very beneficial thing for sure.
Wonderful.
And then some of the gardens will purchase like straw communally, say to like mulch the gardens, or they might build raised beds. They might put in signage. So they're not massive expenses, but certainly most gardens operate somewhere around $500 or $1,000 budget, depending on the size and the season.
Yeah. And is that every year or total?
It kind of depends, like if you have a water system in place, you don't necessarily need to replace it each season. So often the startup cost would be a bit more expensive than sort of subsequent season. And the gardens are often quite good about getting donations and stuff, so some of those can be covered with in-kind, but it kind of depends again.
Yeah, if you were saying, instead of giving us money, give us the tools that we're looking for specifically.
Absolutely, and we've had, some people, my brother works at Rona, they're willing to donate some lumber for the
lovely. Yeah.
Like, it really depends on the situation, but...
Is someone elected from the group to manage the garden, or does Nourish manage the garden?
Yeah, we try to have often volunteer coordinator on each site. Someone can't maintain their plot, or someone has wondering why the water tank is empty. Someone's mad that squash is growing into their plot. Someone doesn't know when to pick their tomatoes. Like those
basic questions.
Have a point of contact, or that I can say, we have 4 people interested in your garden this season. How many plots do you have available? So I work in partnership with them, but I definitely can't oversee the day-to-day of every garden.
That's perfect then, yeah.
If someone on site is the coordinator anyways. So yeah, each garden will have a coordinator or a coordinating committee, depending on the size and engagement of the garden.
I love that. And how big is your biggest community garden?
The Lithlot Community Garden is our biggest, and it has close to 50 plots.
Wow, okay. And how big's a plot? Are they all uniform across the county?
It depends. The average is 10 by 10.
Wow.
The ones at the Lithlot are a little bit bigger. They're about 10 by 20.
That's a decent size.
Yeah.
That's probably way too big for a lot of people.
But 10 by 10 is sort of common in a lot of community gardens. It's not a huge space, but it also isn't too big to manage. So we certainly have people who over time express interest in getting bigger plots, but a lot of the time for a new gardener, they might at the beginning of the season be like, oh, that's kind of small, but then...
I had a friend who was at the Litlock Community Garden, and she said that she actually started with a 10 by 20 plot and was immensely overwhelmed by how big a garden that is, right? So
yeah, it is a pretty big space for sure, and I think some people may at the beginning kind of think, oh, I thought it was bigger, but once you get into it and you are maintaining it and growing it, and we try to help give education on how to plan a small space and so that you can get the most out of it, and certainly support people in trying to make sure they can maximize that space.
Right, totally. So what other workshops are available for people?
We try to kind of go with demand and interest. So some years, say the cucumber beetle will be really bad. So we can have a pest management on site.
Oh, awesome.
But right now we're in the middle of our urban agriculture spring series. And so it's a 5-part series over 5 evenings. And we covered starting seeds indoors. So what to start and how, what should be planted outside, what should be started ahead of time. And then the next one was garden planning. So that was, again, how to maximize your space, to learn about succession planting, companion planting, season extension, those kinds of ideas.
Can't believe I missed this. I would have loved.
Then the third one was growing great soil, water management, pest and diseases. Tomorrow night, we're doing seed saving. And then the last one in the series is growing as a community. So that could be starting a community garden, but it could also be, you have a backyard garden. Have you thought about digging up your boulevard? Or have you thought about chatting with other neighbors who might have land that could be shared to use, or growing in your front yard, putting some vegetables in your flower patch, or... just kind of engaging people in kind of working together on.
And where do you go from here now that your season's done? What can you do now, right? So
yeah, for sure. And maybe you have excess produce and you're thinking about ways that you could distribute it or donate it, or sharing skills.
So comprehensive. You just do it all. It's wonderful.
We've learned over the years the things that people are most interested in, like the seed starting workshop. I mean, people are just desperate to do.
Oh, awesome.
Get their hands in the dirt and do something.
Yes, oh my gosh, it's the middle of March and you're just let me garden.
Exactly. And then throughout the season, as I said, at different sites, people might want to do a trellising workshop, canning, and that kind of stuff as well.
Oh my gosh, I would love to hang out with you and can, or learn how to
Well,
can.
we definitely, our workshops are free and open to everybody, so we don't usually start the canning until like late July, early August, but we certainly will have some available this year.
And so anybody can join these. It's not just if you're a member of a garden?
It's welcome to anybody. I mean, we do have a bit that we try to make sure we're prioritizing people living on low income or people who have trouble accessing fresh food, but we don't require you to show us tax statements. Anyone is welcome, but we try to make sure we're going out of our way to engage with communities that may not already be engaged in this work or that could really benefit from it.
You mentioned soil health. So what do you do to improve the soil health in these community gardens?
So a lot of it is kind of up to the individual, particularly if they've been in a plot for many seasons. There is a municipal policy on basically being organic, so you're not allowed to add any chemical fertilizers or Roundup or anything like that. So that's a municipal policy, which makes it very easy for us to enforce.
I love that.
Yeah, it is. It's great for sure. And most people in community gardens are not really using that, but it just kind of makes it easier that there isn't a gray area.
Mm-hmm.
Usually the city of Peterborough will donate a load of compost to a garden each spring.
Okay.
And quite a few of them do have composting on site. Sometimes that's maintained with varying levels of engagement. So we may or may not produce quite a bit of compost in exchange. Gardeners are welcome to add, as I said, organic amendments of some type that they choose in their plot.
Okay. Where does the city's compost come from?
Just from leaf pickup.
Right.
So it's just a leaf compost.
Yeah.
But generally, if the gardens are already sort of there, it's just kind of an additive to be able to help increase the organic matter in
Absolutely, yeah.
soil. Yeah. So they may still want to get some manure or some mushroom compost or something that has like a bit of diversity of nutrients.
Yeah.
And we do offer education around that as well if people are interested. But we do find, over time, obviously, the soil quality can go down. But, a lot of the time in the new gardens, they're, very rich because they've just turned over sort of inactive soil. And usually we have pretty good success with new gardens not needing a massive amount of soil building or amendment to get started.
That's great. Does somebody come around and rototill the gardens in the spring? Or how does that get set up?
So that would be something that gardens could organize individually if they wanted to do. But because a lot of people have herbs and garlic, and it's quite an expensive thing, it's just not something we offer.
And because they
have
perennial
found, someone abandoned their plot and it's hard for a new gardener to take over, we try to get volunteers that could help clean that up in the fall. Or if you're joining a garden and it was not used last year and it's had 10 feet tall weeds in it, it's not exactly an appealing start to your season.
Yeah. You're just learning how to do it.
There are times where some kind of, and any new garden, we absolutely organize that. The city will just tear off the sod, which isn't necessarily optimal, but we don't expect a new garden to be started by 50 people coming and digging it up by sod.
No.
We certainly will facilitate that tilling for sure.
That's great. So you mentioned compost is on site. Can members of the garden bring their kitchen scraps to kind of diversify the compost?
They can, but we do kind of discourage that unless it's a very active composting committee.
Okay.
Because if, I just went to the Bonnecourt garden last week, per se, and they have this compost container, and people have obviously been dumping their kitchen waste all winter, but they don't turn the soil, they don't do anything, they just drop it there and leave.
Yeah.
And so there's just kitchen waste all over the garden. It's attracting so many animals, and it's an eyesore, it smells. So unless people are willing to engage in the maintenance of the compost, it's not necessarily encouraged. That being said, if you're part of a garden and you're an active composter and you're taking care of it, absolutely. There's you can't do that. I get a lot of calls, there's a community garden up the street for me. Can I bring my compost there? I'm like, well, no, not unless you're going to participate in maintaining that compost.
Yeah.
Just because, you might have neighbors, and if it attracts rats or it smells, that can kind of put a mar on the whole garden.
Yes, exactly.
But there are some gardens that have super active composters. They turn it regularly, and they absolutely do bring kitchen waste to supplement that. So it sort of depends on the scenario.
Is that all year round for those ones that are active?
I don't think so as much, for sure. But I think, even if it was a closed container and there was kitchen scraps, being put over the winter, if someone's maintaining it in the spring, it works a little better.
Yeah.
Certainly we'll offer compost education. We'll help people learn how to do that, but it's not as if I'm going and turning people's compost for them. So it's sort of up to them to oversee that.
That's good, because you're right. Compost does take effort. It's not a passive thing in most cases. Like, yes, it will happen naturally in nature. The log will decompose, but it's not. With kitchen scraps, it's going to have a different smell going on. And,
for sure. And it's hard, because especially since the city canceled their green waste collection, we're very aware that there's a demand and a need. And so we want to support that, but we also want to balance it with, like, those gardeners have a lot to do, and they're not necessarily here to, process your compost for you. So
I know. Yeah.
It's kind of a fine balance, for sure. Increasingly heard people say, like, online and stuff, just drop it off at your community garden, and then I kind of have to be a buzzkill and be like,
no, don't do
not the best idea unless you've communicated with them and you're willing to sort of take part in that process. Mm-hmm. Which could be another element of community building. If people want to do that, that's excellent. Like, they don't have to be part of the garden. They could just participate in that way. And if it works for them, I love to hear those stories.
I think so, too.
I just sometimes have to be, like, the voice of realism. And
be like, guys, it's going to stink a lot. And you know how hot summer gets. So maybe reconsider. Yeah.
Yeah, and, maybe active composters know what you are and aren't supposed to put in the compost, but if you're not doing that, like, that can cause a whole other type of problem, so. Yeah,
and using those compostable bags, too, those do not break down fast enough in one growing season either, so to have bits of that in their garden. People don't want that. You know what? Peterborough knows that there's the demand, and they will get the heck on it, and we'll have it soon. What kind of advice would you have for someone in a different city looking to start their own community garden?
Well, I mean, I can send you, or it's on our website too. We have a fact sheet, sort of 10 steps for starting a community garden. So definitely getting to know the landowner, and depending on the city, if you do have an existing policy, that can kind of give you the framework for it. Talking to them and figuring out if it's more than just one season, and is there water access, and, like, these sort of critical pieces.
Right, yeah.
Does it get enough sun? Is it surrounded by black walnut trees? Like, is it realistically a site? That could be done first if you know a space, but also you may just have a group of, like, active community members who sort of think this is a good idea and are starting to organize around it and may have a few sites in mind in the area.
Yeah.
And we'd suggest, example of the City of Peterborough policy to apply. There's a basic application process, and you need to have about 5 community members on it as the original group. So you're not just like, there's a park next to my house, I'm going to start my own urban farm.
Yeah.
Idea.
Yeah. Although that's also a clever idea.
So you don't really want to just be like, me and my partner are going to do this and it'll be fine,
Right.
Show you've engaged with some members of the community. If there's a group like Nourish, which there are in many communities, connect with them. They can support you, and they may have other people in the neighborhood on their waiting list that you might know or not know that they can connect you to. Outreach, so even if it's you and your friends that want to start it, you want to, like, reach out to neighbors that might want to be interested, but also neighbors that might use the park to walk their dog or the sightline of the garden. You don't want people to find out about it when the plows go into the ground.
Yes.
In general, you would much rather them be engaged prior to that process wherever possible.
Absolutely.
So those kind of conversations are pretty important.
Yes. Oh my gosh. They're just like, I didn't actually agree to this, and now it's across the street from me.
Some people that are very against community gardens.
That's interesting.
That is not the norm, but it certainly has come up for sure.
Why would they?
Oh my God, that's a whole other story.
Oh. An upsetting way. Okay.
Sometimes people really like the look of grass and think that's how things should look.
Okay. You can enjoy your front lawn then, Sir Madam.
Gardens won't get used and they'll look ugly, or people throw tomatoes at my house, or.
That's fair. Those are fair concerns, but if they're properly supported.
So you need to be prepared to engage in all of that and not sort of turn your nose up at people's concerns, and that's why a group like Nourish can be great, because I can say, we've helped support 47 community gardens, and so far no one's thrown tomatoes at someone's house.
Yeah, exactly. If that's a real concern.
For sure. And then there's more specific logistics around, finding a coordinator, raising some money, designing the garden, those kind of pieces that don't have to be done right away, but that is definitely probably things you want to think about again before you've dug up the whole garden.
Yeah, the number of times I've rearranged the plan for my personal garden.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
So,
planning
it
things.
depends. That's something you could do on your own, but if there is a supportive organization that has some best practices, that would be very good to find as well.
What's the deal with black walnut trees? You said are those just bad?
Like they send out a chemical that makes it very difficult to grow certain vegetables underneath them.
What? Really? That's so strange.
Too bad, 'cause they're beautiful trees.
Yeah.
But you can't really grow tomatoes or peppers or things like that underneath them.
Interesting.
So.
You talked a little bit about one of your workshops is about companion planting. Do you mind telling a little bit about that?
What I say is very simply is usually things that taste good together grow well together.
Really?
One could just be straight up logistic. You don't put all your root crops all in rows next to each other because they're all using underground energy. So if you put a row of carrots, you might want to put a row of beans, for example, or tall things. You may either want them to shade out or you don't want them to shade out crops. And then there are some things like, say, beans are nitrogen fixers, so they add nitrogen to your soil, and quite a lot of other crops are heavy nitrogen feeders.
Your soil needs a balance of nitrogen and
like
carbon.
nitrogen is a pretty common food source for a lot of vegetables.
So cool.
And then there's some things that would just like help deter or attract good or harmful insects. So those things like marigolds do kind of put out a bit of a natural pesticide. So that's why people plant marigolds around the perimeter of their garden.
That's amazing. My mother has always planted like tons of marigolds around the outside of her garden, and I've just never thought they were a particularly beautiful flower, so I didn't know why she did it, but she never had a lot of bugs, so.
A lot of it is based on like, just sort of, this is what's always been done, but I feel like people are doing more research on it now and saying like, actually there are scientific evidence to back up what many people's moms and grandmas already knew, so that's a lot of what companion planting is. It's not an exact science. Especially in a small space garden, it can really help you sort of maximize 10 acres. Maybe you're not so concerned about those things, but if you only have a 10 by 10 plot, you do want to know what's all together and what will help other things grow, for sure.
Yeah. Are there any plants that should not be planted together?
There are a few things. Like off the top of my head, I can't completely remember what they are, but we do have like a chart and everything. I think sunflowers do put a certain like element into the soil that not everything necessarily loves. And as I said, you don't necessarily want to plant like your tomatoes, peppers, beans all like right next to each other because they'll kind of like compete with one another. Whereas if you put your carrots next to your tomatoes, they're like using different parts of the soil.
That's something that if you're planting your own personal garden and it's not in pots, like if it's all in a bed together, then to be able to consider what is going to just make it thrive in the ground.
For sure, and even just things that you might not think about, like, you only have to pick your carrots once, but you pick your beans quite regularly, so make them, like, accessible.
Right,
Stomping on the other crops to get to them, and that's a bit of the garden planning, but it all sort of interlinks together. So it's quite well, it's been there for quite a long time.
What is having access to a community garden teaching people about sustainability?
Well, I think as you said, you put your hands in the soil, that in itself is teacher, watching things grow, seeing, like, a lot of them are in urban centers. There's quite a few of them downtown, in East City. Not a lot of greenery sometimes in those areas, so certainly you see, like, bugs and bees and birds and things you may not have seen hanging out there before, starting to enjoy. The mental health aspect is quite well documented that having more green space and more trees is very beneficial to people, whether you're passively engaging it or not. And if you're in a community garden, you're obviously quite a bit deeper engaged in that. And then one interesting side effect we saw that we didn't necessarily anticipate, I also work for the downtown farmers market, so I see a lot of our community gardeners there. And they are more likely to buy local food. They have an appreciation for how much work it takes. And a deeper appreciation for how good it tastes when you do grow it. So some people say, like, don't teach people to garden because they won't buy local anymore. But we've actually found the opposite to be true.
Who's saying that? That's ridiculous.
I know. It's not a common thing that I hear people say necessarily, but I think, like, we kind of underestimated the impact that it would have in terms of people actually prioritizing going to the market and budgeting to purchase their food there, and also that it, like, lasts a lot longer in their fridge if they've grown it themselves. I think at peak season it's not necessarily more expensive, but there's sometimes that perception that it is. So they see the value that is there, that they're supporting a farmer, the taste, the health of the food is better, and then, if you buy fresh lettuce from Circle Organic, it's like 2 weeks later, it's totally fine in your fridge. If you buy lettuce from the grocery store, it's like gone brown and disgusting in a few days.
Because it's already been picked 2 weeks ago,
Exactly. So that's, I think, an element of sustainability that is really positive, and that has a lot of capacity to have quite an impact on the communities because people just just have a deeper appreciation for the work it takes to be a farmer and to grow your own food.
Yeah, because it takes so much work and hope and, my gosh, so much effort to grow your own food.
So yeah, I mean, just the general greening is a huge aspect and a huge benefit, but we've certainly seen like ripple side effects into other, and sometimes we see like you start a community garden and you'll start to notice more gardens pop up on the neighbors.
Yeah.
So it's like start to see people planting their lawns or putting in raised beds, or you sort of see it just kind of like ripple throughout the community.
If you wanted to build a raised bed on your boulevard, that's a city permission thing, right?
Raised bed might be. But to be honest, it's a bit of a gray area right now in terms of boulevards, so there's nothing that says you can't plant your boulevard.
Really?
But there is like a bylaw system in place that if you plant like 12-foot sunflowers and your neighbor is feeling it's obstructing their view in terms of pulling out into the street, like a safety.
Oh, like a safety view. Sorry, not just sitting on the porch watching cars.
Yeah, not just their physical view. Although, to be honest, because it's a complaint-driven system, if you had a very finicky neighbor who really didn't like it, they may be able to get a bylaw officer out to your house to look at it. Whether they would make you take it down or not, again, is quite a gray area. But if you lived at a corner and people feel it's obstructing their view of safety, that could be an infringement.
Yes.
For sure.
Could restaurants engage with community gardens?
Yeah, absolutely.
Would they either be able to have their own plot? Would they be able to buy from people who have their own plot and have a surplus?
Well, that is a bit of a challenge. So right now, the city policy says you cannot sell that food.
Oh, okay.
And that's mostly specific to municipal property. So you could do it as a fundraiser if the money goes back into the garden. But right now, I can't grow food on my community garden plot and sell it to a restaurant.
Okay, or sell it to anyone, sell it to neighbors or anything. It would have to be a donation or a gift.
That's right. And that's partly just to you may get some complaints like, why is this person running a business on land I'm paying for with my taxes?
Oh, yeah.
I am hoping that garden policy is a stepping stone for an urban agriculture policy, and that can change in a few spaces, or that we may be able to get zoning or certain spaces where that's allowed. But right now, it's pretty strict. Right now, the community gardens are designed to just be growing for yourself or to share.
And that's beautiful. The idea that it's a not-for-profit experience. You're not going in there to sell all the zucchinis at a little roadside lemonade stand. You're able to realize that some years you're going to have the worst plot ever and you're not going to get any food, and some years you're going to have such an abundance that it's going to blow your mind and you're going to be like, here, please take some tomatoes. Like, I don't know what to do with this anymore.
For sure. And that is part of why we do the canning and preserving.
Yes, which I love. I'm so excited about that workshop.
That season, and we certainly advocate for changes in urban ag that allow for people, but I can also see that if it was just wide open, we may have people, can I have 6 plots because my business is really growing, and maybe the city would start charging the land, and we really do want it to be accessible to everyone in the community.
Exactly.
So there are complications. That's not so simple as just to say, it'd be great if everyone could grow and sell food. Yes,
just leave it. That's fine.
But also there would be some challenges that would arise. So.
You want to make money from it, buy your own plot somewhere. I don't know.
And I mean, we're certainly also consciously advocating for urban agriculture on the same vein, and community gardens are part of that, but I hope they will sort of evolve.
Where can people learn more about Nourish? Do you have any online resources at all for people?
Yeah, so our website is nourishproject.ca. Is all our programs. There's a map of the community gardens. There's some of the resources that I talked about with companion planting and seed starting. And then there's all of our contact information. There's an events page there that does, have our community dinners. And then we have social media too. So we have a Facebook page and Instagram. And then we have a newsletter. So you can sign up for that on our website.
Jill, is there anyone inspiring you in the low-waste, eco-friendly, sustainability community lately?
Well, I mean, I think Peterborough is a very inspiring community to be part of the food movement.
I think so too.
So as I said, I'm very lucky to work with a lot of farmers and a lot of growers, and they're all very passionate people, and I'm always sort of blown away by the number of organizations that we can interlink with. Like, my coworkers blow my mind on a daily basis.
Wonderful.
Like, they are incredible people who are very dedicated to the work that they do, and stressful to work for a not-for-profit in this day and age.
Yeah.
And yet they continue to dedicate themselves.
Well, thanks, Jill. Well,
you're welcome.
See you around this summer.
Bye.
Thanks again for listening, everyone. I'm so grateful you took the time to learn all about how to bring sustainability to your community today. If you want to learn more about the Nourish Project, head over to their website, nourishproject.ca, or find them on social media at Nourish Project News. You can find me on Instagram at Elspeth Callahan, and you can even find the podcast on Instagram at practicallyzerowastepod. Thanks for listening. Now go outside. Have a great week, everyone, and talk to you soon.